Recently, the Princess Margaret Hospital has come under tremendous fire from the public, accused of negligence, bad service, and the like. Sad to say, these are not new complaints. Question is, what's going to be done? Following a public outcry of bloody murder, the Prime Minister, Philip Davis, recently said he has identified monies to build a new hospital. But is that the answer, or is something else needed? Our guest tonight is the new head of the Bahamas Nurses Union, Muriel Lightburn, as we attempt to get insight from those on the front lines. Our topic, Pmh Saga, the need for more medical personnel. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. I'll see you right back here on the other side this break.
So the project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
at the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
Welcome back and welcome to Season 7 of On the Record. Tonight we start things off a little differently. First up, a review of what's making news, trending on social media, and the ever-important public feedback. And then on to our studio guests. We begin, though, with Since We Last Spoke, where we look at the biggest stories for the week. Last Wednesday, a group of protesters gathered outside Parliament threatening to take their demonstrations even further, claiming to be residents concerned about illegal immigration and the issues surrounding it. They said they are looking to take their concerns to protest at the upcoming CARICOM meeting to be held next week. At the helm of that protest was the Coalition of Independence leader Lincoln Bain, who says it may not end at the protest. Well, just a few things about that. We are not a people who are given to violence. While protesting is a part of democracy and always encouraged, it's a way to really get out there and get your point across. We have to be careful not to cross that line. And since, all of this has started, there have been lots of threatening comments, and even you've seen a lot of xenophobia. And we have to be careful. Who's Bahamian? Who's Haitian Bahamian, and who's Haitian? The lines are crossed and blurred. I just encourage folks out there, let's be sensible in our discourse. We are not a violent people, and violence is never the answer to anything. Now, on Friday afternoon, an emergency press conference was called at the office of the Prime Minister. The Commissioner of Police advised of death threats against the Prime Minister, which started at Wednesday's demonstration when someone called for his assassination. And then on Friday, there were 2 phone calls placed to the office of the Prime Minister, 2 males threatening to kill Prime Minister Davis. So this is extremely troubling. The Prime Minister's office is a sacred office to be respected. We can't be taking these matters lightly. This is a very serious situation. And whether you agree with the choice of Prime Minister or not, you have to respect the office. And when you talk about threatening the life of the Prime Minister, we have now moved into a much different realm. And embarrassingly so, as we now get set to welcome our regional neighbours for CARICOM. So we have to stop and think very seriously about this. I commend the Commissioner of Police and the police force for doing what they did and moving very quickly and, really pointing out the seriousness of this. You can't be threatening the life of the Prime Minister. I don't care what your political beliefs or persuasions are. It is not the thing to do. We are now in very dangerous territory. Let us be mindful that we can disagree, but disagree peacefully. Now, on Sunday morning at about 10 o'clock, a blaze engulfed a shanty town on Pink Meadow Road off Bellard Road in the Carmichael Road area. It is estimated that over 20 homes were destroyed, leaving over 50 people displaced. One of those residents saying she left to run errands and came back to her destroyed home. Very sad, very troubling situation. You know, despite what the argument is about these shanty towns, people have lost homes, people have lost possessions, and so, you know, I encourage folks out there to help those who've been displaced. And of course, this speaks, of course, to the larger looming issue of the shanty towns and what is still a very contentious matter for many people in the community, but it also shows the dangers of these shanty towns. One fire can bring down an entire community and leave so many people homeless. Also on Sunday, Our News broke a story about mutiny within the Valley Boys Junkanoo group, where members want to oust the current chairman, Brian Adderley, and replace him with Valley Boy Trevor Davis, who is said to be backed by many influential members of the group, including former Prime Minister Perry Christie. Davis, who has been a member for the past 42 years, says he is upset about the Valley Boys' dip in wins and plans to bring the group back to its glory. Now, since then, we understand that Stephen Eggy Bombane and Patrick Adderley have tossed their hats into the ring to be chairman, and now the group is set to go into elections next month. And let me start out by saying, all the Valley Boy haters, I need you all to press brakes, okay? Calm down, okay? Just calm down. And don't be messaging me after the show. But seriously, in any organization, whenever things are not going right or there are issues with productivity, sales, and in this instance, where the group, may, be watching their winning record deplete, maybe it's time for a change. You know, we live in a democratic society, so if the group determines that it is time to change the leader, that's a natural thing. If the company isn't doing well, if the organization isn't doing well, you cut from the head, so maybe there needs to be, a change in leadership. And I do want to say, you all know I'm a Valley Boy, I don't run from that. But one family has done a really good job with this, and we see the fruits of the labor. We see, the back-to-back wins in the two parades. We see one family and what it's done for them. The change in leadership is a good thing. Good thing. So Valley Boys, get it together. If you got to change in leadership, do that. Get back to work, okay? We got about 10 months till the next parade, so let's get it together. And finally, after death threats were made to Prime Minister Davis, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis telling the press, when a prime minister no longer feels safe, it's time to go. Dr. Minnis says while he does not condone violence and believes that the prime minister should be protected, he feels the additional police security was overkill. Dr. Minnis also believes the Davis administration must work to address issues that are festering anger among residents. Well, what I was hoping to see from Dr. Minnis and many others was a very strong condemnation and rebuke of any threats against the Prime Minister. I think that it is important that political leaders, whether you be in government or out of government, and this goes for the opposition as well, should stand up and speak out against instances like this. As the old people say, today for you, tomorrow for me. So I think that we have to be careful of the messages we send, whether we're in or out of government. And I'm a bit disappointed that more people did not come out and condemn these death threats. That's a very serious matter, and I'm disappointed. And I was looking to see if there were going to be more statements. We like to release statements about things, so I was hoping and looking for more condemnation of the death threats. Well, anyway, that's it for Since We Last Spoke. Hit us up on our Facebook page or on Instagram, that's on the record, to tell us how you liked this new element of our show. Stay with us. We'll see you right after this break.
So the project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
Welcome back. We are in a new season, so we've got some new things for you. Some new things, of course. What's trending on social media? Very important to our millennials, so we have added this segment to make sure we're talking to everyone in our audience. If you're not on it, now is the time to get on your social media page. Let's see what's out there. So Ben Norton's tweet that the United States is in harvesting organs from people in privatized prisons. Stage of capitalism, he calls it. U.S. politicians are proposing a law that would give prisoners a few months off their sentence if they donate their organs or bone marrow. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. I have no clue how that would work. I mean, what if you get out and then die? And anyway. All right. So again, on Twitter, Sarah has tweeted that even in the wake of a devastating earthquake that has killed 11,000 people in Turkey and Syria, the U.S. and EU has refused to lift sanctions which prevent Syrians from receiving direct aid from many countries. She says we should remember this the next time they lecture the world about human rights. So folks, you know, even in a tragedy, there are so many political things that still exist that prevent us from helping each other. So many times I say we are so blessed on this side of the world. We remember Dorian, our doors were wide open. We received aid from any and everyone without having to worry about these geopolitical things. Anyway, in another tweet about the situation in Turkey, this one coming from Nikki saying that in my country, Turkey, there have been earthquakes that have been continuing since last night, leaving great damage. Thousands lost their lives. The others die from cold weather and a lack of help. Everyone who has lost their family, we need your help. Encouraging people to retweet that. Folks, if you're in a position to help any organization that's helping the folks in Turkey, please reach out, see what you can do to help. We all remember the world came to our aid when we were in trouble. This tweet hitting home a bit. Well, a neo-Nazi couple were arrested on charges of plotting to completely destroy Baltimore by attacking energy substations around the 62% black city. Prosecutors say that Brandon Russell and Sarah Clendaniel were motivated by racist extremism and had a manifesto referencing Hitler. Russell is said to be a Bahamian who attended St. Andrew's High School. So this just goes to show us that we're not all on the same page in this country sometimes, you know. We sometimes think that we're isolated and insulated from things that are happening in the world. But, you know, extremist views can find the way into the hearts and minds and thinking of so many people around us. An unfortunate situation. All right. So Chris Ship informs us that the man with the loaded crossbow at Windsor Castle grounds wearing a metal mask that threatened to kill the late Queen on Christmas Day back in 2021 admits to treason. His name is Uswald Singh Shale, 21, pleaded guilty. Police found evidence that he was motivated by past actions of the British Empire. Now, you all know how I feel about the Queen. But that being said, we must all try to keep our views in a place that does not drive us to extreme behavior. He felt that he was wronged by the British Empire, so he tried to assassinate the Queen. Not a good thing, buddy. You should have thought about that twice. This week, local social media pages were buzzing with photo of Bahamian double Olympic gold medalist Shawnee Miller-Weibo, who announced on Instagram that she and her husband are expecting a baby. The photo went viral. What a wonderful, cute photo showing Shawnee in all of her splendor. She looks beautiful as the expected mother. As expected, of course, this ignited a huge discussion about the possible citizenship of her baby. Some even advocating she should come home and have the baby. Well, locally, Morning Blend radio show tweeted the information on who can pass on citizenship to their offspring at birth. Here it goes. Kids born in the Bahamas, well, Bahamian women and Bahamian men. Kids born abroad, Bahamian men and Bahamian women. Well, we're going to say that, well, all done with that. We're all done with that trending. But here's what I want to point out. When the issue of citizenship arose, on 2 occasions, we voted against it. So, we have to be careful when we are looking at issues that we don't allow passion and emotion to get in the way of us making reasoned decisions. So, Shawnee, feel free to have your baby wherever you want it, with you and your husband. Bahamian people, it's not your business where she chooses to have this baby and the citizenship that comes along with the child. Shauna, we wish you all the best. We wish you a safe delivery. But it is instances like these that raise the questions and helps us to put into perspective the decisions we make today will affect our country tomorrow. We're all done with the trending things. We're going to take a break now. And when we come back, it'll be time to meet our guests and get our discussion started. The project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference,
the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
You're watching On the Record. Welcome back. Our topic tonight is the Pmh Saga, the need for more medical personnel. Well, we've heard from the public through social media and all of the dialogue. Now it's time to hear from those who work on the front line in the hospital. With us in studio is the newly elected president of the Bahamas Nurses Union, Nurse Muriel Lightburn. Nurse Lightburn, of course, congratulations, first of all, on your ascension and win as president of the Nurses Union. And welcome to On the Record. We're happy to have you with us.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here.
So let's dive right in. Recently, the Princess Margaret Hospital has come under heavy fire from the public, specifically speaking to these allegations of shoddy service from nurses and doctors. Do you think the public's criticisms are justified?
To say that whether the public's criticism is justified, I would say no. However, the public, they make their criticism based on what they, or how they feel the service they would have gotten at the hospital. Mm-hmm. So, for me to say yes or to say no would not be really speaking to their feelings. You know how we go. We as people, when we go into the hospital, we just expect certain things. And so I want to be the first to get served. My case is more important than the other person's case. So for me to say whether it is justified, I can't really speak to that individual because that's an individual case. But for the nurses, as it concerns nurses, I know that nurses give their best when they go into work, regardless of their situation. You would heard the Prime Minister speak about the situation, the crisis in the hospital, the lack of the physical space and everything else, but yet nurses perform and they do the best that they can under those circumstances.
So I want to ask you this question. I have raised it time and time again on this show. How much of the responsibility rests with the public when it comes to the state of the Princess Margaret Hospital? And I ask that against the backdrop of this is the public hospital, okay? And I think public for us automatically means free. Yes. We think everything is free and should be free. We show up for everything from a stubbed finger to a cardiac arrest or a serious accident, gunshot, whatever. Everyone, it seems, comes to the hospital. regardless of whether it's a serious case or not. So one, we show up expecting everything to be free.
Right.
And secondly, we show up with every condition that we think needs medical attention. How much of the responsibility lies with the public?
Well, I think if we're talking about percentage-wise, I think about 60–70% of that responsibility lies on the public. Reason why, you just mentioned that they would go to the hospital for any and everything. We have situations where you would be home all day. You may have had a headache all day today. And then you decide that I'm going to go to the hospital at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, or you may go, in some cases, people not be feeling well for 2–3 days, and then they decide they're going to the hospital and they expect that, or ice in my head hurting, I need to get served. They leaving me sitting out here and I get served. Yeah, we're talking about accident and emergency. Accident and emergency. And so you have to understand that while you may have been there from 7 o'clock because of your headache, there may be some persons in the back there being served because of something else, something more critical. There may be an accident in the back there. They may, and I could tell you, Mr. Sawyer, if you come into accident emergency with a flu, and you think that somebody comes in and cardiac arrest, or a stabbing comes in there, you think they're going to let that person wait until they see you who had the flu 2 days ago and you decided to come 3 days later? That's not how it works. And so a lot of times we crowd Princess Margaret because we want to get served first. That's not the case. And the public needs to be aware of that. The public needs to be aware that if you come to Princess Margaret, expect to wait unless you come an accident or emergency. And I think that needs to be stressed. And that's what I think we have this falling down with the public.
And then we use the ambulance and don't want to pay. Don't want to pay the registration fee. Don't want to pay for any services.
Exactly.
We expect public to mean free.
Exactly. Can I tell you, a lot of times, and you know what we find too, Mr. Sawyer, a lot of times persons come to the hospital, they get free service, they get the medications free, and then they take those same medications home and they don't use them. They may take it for 1, 2, 3 days, and then they stop. And when somebody else goes to the clinic or to the hospital and they go for their medication, the medication isn't in stock. And then they say, oh, this hospital don't ever have this, the hospital don't ever have that. These things cost, they are costly. I had a nephew that was in Boston. He was in Boston, he took sick in Boston. You know when I realized how costly the medications are, because I work at Sandilands, and so he was in a mental hospital in Boston, and they told me when we went to collect him, me and his mom, they said they had to give him 0.5 milligrams of Haldol because one, he wasn't a citizen, he didn't have that insurance, and their medication is expensive. We give our clients medication, and you could ask them any day, you have any medication on, bring it for me. And you'll get a bag of medications.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, you know, and it's always important to have balance when we have these discussions,
Yes.
and that's why, you know, I asked you those questions up front. But you do have instances where people have complained about the bad attitudes by the staff, etc. I know that in some instances these claims are justified. I've experienced it. We've all experienced it. How do you respond to that? When all of your colleagues are not professional, they don't all come to work with the right attitude.
Yes, I agree with you. I can agree with you, Mrs. Sawyer. Not all the time that we go to work and we have the best attitude. And then there's not all the time our clients come to us and they have the best attitude.
You know that door swing both ways.
Right.
Come on now.
And there are incidents where you have clients come into the hospital And Mrs. Sawyer, they will curse the nurse from when their great-grandmother had their great-grand. You understand?
I have
They will
literally
curse
seen
you.
signs in the hospital where they said, we will not tolerate abuse.
Exactly.
So you have to tell people
Exactly.
how to behave, but they expect you all to behave.
But they expect us to behave. You have incidents where clients go in, they will fight the nurse, they will, it's just a lot of things that happens. But these things, and I can assure you, these incidents where there are verbal abuse towards the staff is more than maybe you go in one day and the nurse talk to you bad. And then we have to constitute what they mean when they say the nurse talk to them bad. If the nurse, you go to the nurse and the nurse says, well, you have to wait. That nurse, she just talked to me so bad in there. She better lucky you see these
Just
are the
because she said
things.
because you have to wait.
Exactly, because she says, you have to wait, ma'am, and don't let her be walking, go in, and she answer you. Again, that nurse has a bad attitude. So we have to weigh the cost. I know we say all the time, there's sometimes, Mr. Sawyer, I come to work, and I would go to work, and I'm not feeling so good, right? But I go to work anyhow. And when you go to work, you have to smile sometimes when these clients tell you a piece of their mind. You have to smile. And you have to continue
I come to
serving
work
them.
sometime and don't have the best attitude.
Exactly.
My staff is laughing. No, but that's human nature.
Yes.
We some days we show up and you're just not prepared. But
Yes.
again, I want to go back to these instances of abuse because, where's the security? Or does security have to be called in to deal with these instances? Where's the security when these things happen, or what's the protocol?
Securities are there. Most of the time, when these incidents happen, they're in the back, in the work area. Securities are not in the work area. So when these incidents happen, then you have to go and you have to call securities. And sometimes, you would not believe, when you call security, and at Princess Margaret, they have the Defense Force officers, and those are there now.
So you have the Defense Force now to be at the hospital because we don't know how to behave.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so when they come in, sometimes it escalates the situation because what the client see then is, or you call the law for me, or you call a man for me, how, and then it escalates the situation, and it just blows out. And when everything is calmed down, you'll be surprised as to, you sit back, and sometimes some clients will say, oh, I really didn't have to go there.
And once this escalates, you still have to provide care.
And you still have to provide care.
Oh,
you still have to provide care.
Okay. So I want to talk, though, too, about the working conditions. It's been said repeatedly, facilities have been renovated and modernized. Are these facilities still at good enough standards for nurses and even doctors, although you represent, the nurses, but are they of the standard that healthcare professionals are comfortable working in? Because not only the patients have to use Pmh, and we transit, we come in and we leave, but are these conditions up to standard for you all?
Mr. Sawyer, as we walked through the Princess Margaret Hospital during the election process, during our campaign, there was a lot of concerns. Even though there were renovations done, there was still some concerns about the condition. It wasn't acceptable. But I could say, Mr. Sawyer, our nurses, we make it work. Our nurses make it work. And so I take my hats off to them. I just tip it. I take my hats off to them. Because under those circumstances, you can imagine there are some cases where the client, have to go into the same bathroom. You have the rest period. You have to go into the same bathroom. And when you look at things being free, people go in and they do what they want to do. And sometimes it's the condition.
The people nasty. You could say it, they nasty.
And so when you go into these same environments, Mrs. Sawyer, that's what our nurses work under. And, there's a lot of improvement needs to be done. And I think sometimes when they do these renovations, they don't ask nurses for their input. And that's
You
where
all are
I
an
think we fall.
integral part of the
Yes.
process because you really are the front line. You
Yes.
all are the people that we see first when we
Yes.
come for, when we come to be treated. Just before we go to the break, and once we're talking about conditions, we talked about the physical conditions. I had nurses tell me, just recently, sometimes you got to walk the floor for 40 minutes to find just basic supplies,
Yes.
to help a patient.
Yes.
But, aside from that, we talked about the working conditions. What about the compensation? I know, there's been a lot said, demonstrated, there were things done. Are you being compensated for what you do properly?
No, we're not. Nurses are not being compensated. If nurses were being compensated, we won't have the exodus of nurses leaving. Nurses are leaving, Mr.
Right. We
Sawyer.
want to talk about that exodus after the break. That's an important point. But how hard is it when the conditions aren't right and the pay ain't right, but you still have to come to work?
It comes down to what our community feels that the nurses don't have. It comes down to caring. It comes down to the love of taking care of our people. That's what it comes down to. It only has to come down to love. It's only love, Mr. Sawyer. And even though you may hear one or two persons in the community say, all these people, they don't care about you, Mr. Sawyer, to get up, to work in those conditions. There are times when nurses have to go into their own pockets. We are already not being paid, but we go into our pockets so we can have the things, the tools that we need to take care of the clients. You can't tell me there are people who don't care.
I know. I want to tell you it's so true, and I will say this. Over 15 years ago, my mother was a patient at Pmh and died in the hospital, but the level of care that she received there at that time, I still applaud you all, and I think we need to remember that. A lot of times you all are there for love.
Yes.
Love of country and love of
Yes.
people. We're at the point of our break in the show. Stay with us. We've got a good topic on the record. We're back right after this. So the project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference,
the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
You're watching On the Record. Welcome back. We are discussing the Pmh saga, the need for more medical personnel. Is that really the answer, though? But before we get back into our discussion, our Joshua Williams was out there finding out what the public thinks about service at Pmh in this segment of the Tweenies, Man on the Street.
Yeah, man, I think the hospital's doing the best they can for everybody. I mean, sometimes it's be a long wait and all that stuff, but if you can't wait, then you got to go pick up a private doctor. Simple. It save lives, Some of the doctors in there, they're kind of a little slow and lousy and stuff. But I won't say no more about them. But I mean, the government's trying to do the best they could with this system, and that's my 100%.
I mean, when it comes to like doctors, I think they're doing a perfectly good job. I have not had a bad experience, so I can't talk on their regards.
What about PMH?
PMH? Now, only experience I encountered with PMH, with the security. One night I came in to bring someone that was having an asthma attack, and we didn't have a mask because it was an emergency. I was like, they were like, "Oh, we can't let you in because you don't have a mask on," and like they was willing to turn us away.
So what's your opinion on what's going on PMH right now?
Well, I just think the people them to PMH only could work with what they got, because if they had something else to work with, I think they'll do a better job, I only think the doctors and nurses could work with what they got, and that's all they could do about it, you know?
Are there any improvements that can be made at the hospital, in your opinion?
Yeah, plenty of improvements could be made, you know? When you go to the hospital, take a long time before you get served. That's why a lot of people die and stuff like that. But it's a lot of improvement could be done, you know? And I think the Minister of Health, I think he'll, with a name, someone do something about it, you know? And I really, with a name, I really behind them, and I think they could do a great job about it, you know?
Anything else you may want to add or say?
No, not really. Just that.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, we want to thank Josh for providing us with that man on the street. Our discussion continues. The Pmh Saga, the need for more medical personnel. Nurse Lightburn, thank you for continuing to be with us. We're also joined by the Secretary General of the Bahamas Nurses Union, Nurse Siobhan Brennan DeVoe. Welcome to On the Record.
Thank you for having me.
I want to extract two things out of that man on the street. One, a lady said she came there with someone without a mask, but that's mandated.
Yes.
So you spoke to some of the issues that the public brings that you all have to face into. Every medical facility requires you to still wear a mask.
Right. And because she didn't have a mask, and the security would have spoke to her about it.
Doing his job.
Doing his job, it becomes an issue. And that's what we talked about earlier. It depends on the individual and how they perceive something that is said or something that is done, and then they feel like, oh, it's a bad attitude of the nurse or the doctor or whoever they would have encountered.
Who's doing their job.
Yes.
Secondly, this notion that people are dying because they have to wait. Is that fair?
That is not a fair statement because the healthcare system is designed with preventative services, i.e. the clinics where I work. So I'm a nurse and I'm stationed at the Flamingo Gardens Clinic. And so we always stress preventative care. And so one of the things with that is to actually try to take a load off of the accident emergency departments. And a lot of people would wait till the last minute to seek medical attention. And we do our very best. We're burnt out, we work long hours, especially for my colleagues that are in the hospital. And we will not say that, oh, the wait is so long that you end up dying, but because it depends on the level of urgency is how you're seeing. Now with the lady expressing, bringing the person as that is a true emergency. I'm a non-asthmatic and I know how that feels. But we have the Ministry of Health has placed the protocols and we still have to adhere to them. A mask is to be worn when you're entering a healthcare facility, and so you will receive full care. So to say that the long wait, going back to that, to say that the long wait is the cause of death, no, that your condition had to have been settled for a few days and you decided that you did not want to seek preventative care and you just wanted to go to the emergency room because, you know, urgent care means that you will, of course, be seen immediately. And what I want to do is stress to the public that we don't want you to wait to that extent. We want you to come in and find out exactly what your issue is.
So the topic of tonight's show is really, do we need more personnel? Is that the answer, or are there other things that need to be that we need to look at implementing other than just providing more doctors and nurses?
I believe that we do need more health professionals, but I also believe that we can do a whole lot better with preventative care. Siobhan alluded to that. I believe that strongly. I believe, Mr. Sawyer, that if we train or teach, educate our public on certain things, on how to prevent certain conditions, and just basically how to take care of yourself to maintain wellness, that would alleviate a lot of the trafficking into the hospitals. Another thing, I believe, if we teach our young people's conflict resolution, because we see that now more than ever, there's always gunshot wounds. There always violent act that these people, they have to go to the hospital.
Injuries.
These injuries, and so they have to come to the hospital. That's another set of persons trafficking in and putting the pressure on the hospital. And then too, we have persons who are, okay, they are known diabetic, hypertensive, and all these other illness, but you try to educate them on how to manage these conditions while they're home, right? And some of them, they'll tell you, oh, I ain't taking this medication because somebody tell me, say, the side effects, especially our male population, when that have to deal
Somebody
with.
tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me on Facebook or WhatsApp. Yeah, 'cause
and so
they have all the answers.
exactly, and so they don't want to take it because of this, or this could stop this from, I ain't gonna do this and this could, you understand. And so they don't want to take these medications. And so while you're not taking the medication because you don't want this side effect, your blood pressure increasing.
So then now it becomes the hospital's emergency or it becomes the clinic's emergency.
It does.
And then it goes to the point that we let the person die because they didn't get immediate care. What about the continuity of your care? When we discharge you, I'm sure every nurse, when we discharge a client, there's something that called education. We educate them on their discharge. So they know what they have to do. They know why. Doctors educate you and say, this is why you have to take this medication to maintain this, to maintain that. So why you decide that, but I ain't taking this. I ain't taking this. Why you decide that I can eat this anyhow because I like this chicken. You know how we like to say, I can eat this big Kentucky chicken and then I can drink a zero Coke. You understand?
That's to balance it out.
Okay. And so we do these things and then your illness becomes the hospital problem.
Emergency. Nurse Brown?
Another component to that is that I want to add that I think with the public in mind that they kind of like to put in the back view of the social ills that we have. I understand. I think COVID for the whole globe threw a shed a light on that. The fact that having employment is important because if you don't have a job, you're not able to take care of yourself. And it's a trickle-down effect that we see and it leads to persons, they're not taking care of themselves and it leads to them coming in at what we call the
end stage
minute. You're right, just to seek medical attention. So what I want to put in there to let the public know is that while we as healthcare providers, our job is to take care of you, whether you're well or ill. That's our whole focus. That's what we're trained for. And we understand that you have other factors that affect that, but we don't want you to cast blame on the system fully because of your social ills. We understand that a lot of people are unemployed and the country has resources, the government has resources that are there to assist, and we also have private places that allow that as well. You should also take an opportunity and seek those to help you because we're not going to turn you away when you come in, but we also want you to be a little bit more responsible when it comes to your health care.
And which brings me to, I guess, another point, the role of the clinics.
Yes.
We have clinics throughout the community, but yet so many people will immediately defer to the hospital for care when you all provide in those clinics a great level of care.
Yes, we do.
Why is it that you think people don't want to come to the clinics or just are not taking it seriously?
It goes back to the same phenomenon with A&E. They will say that it's a wait time, but what I appreciate that we have in place is that we have appointment systems, and we stress that you keep that appointment so you can be seen and your issues can be thoroughly assessed. And if you need further medical attention, that's when we would then refer you to the hospital. So it's going to go back again to what I said a little bit earlier about the social ills. A person might have more than one job, and so their hours of employment doesn't allow them to be able to keep that appointment. And it becomes something that they now it's no longer a priority. And so when they do finally show up, they will say the same thing, oh, well, the wait time is too long. And it's not necessarily so, because we have emergency services set up in the polyclinics. There will be Elizabeth Estates, Flamingo Gardens, and the South Beach, and also at Fleming Street. So when we say poly, meaning that we also offer an ambulatory service. So if there is an emergency, we will see you. We will give you the care that you need. And at the same token, we continue with our preventative services, which is where the appointment system comes in, where after we would have seen you, we ask that you return so that we can continue your care and ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Follow up.
Exactly.
Just because you feel better today doesn't mean you're out of crisis.
Exactly.
And I think we missed that. But I do want to focus a little time before we're out of time on the shortage. I know that we've lost a lot of our nurses to other jurisdictions, and that there is a shortage. How is that impacting, though, the country's ability to deliver proper health care?
That is, it impacts us in the sense where, because of the shortage of nursing, that means that your time to see the doctor may be a little longer because, there's a shortage there. It also could cause, Siobhan mentioned earlier about nurses being burnt out. And so it could kind of eliminate it could downgrade the quality of care that you would get, because if a nurse, when you look at the ratio of nurse-patient, you're looking at in an area like, and this is based on the American Nursing Association, you're looking at in places like accident and emergency, you should have a ratio of like 1 nurse to 4 clients. Obviously that ain't happening. You understand what I'm saying? When you look at, and then the ratio of nurse to client also depends on the acuity of the patient. So if you have a suicidal patient, then that have to be a one-on-one.
That's a constant watching, eh?
A one-on-one.
Wow.
So accident and emergency, who deals with clients from everywhere. Imagine you have 20 patients in accident and emergency, and they just have 20 patients. You have 20 patients in accident and emergency. You have 5 suicidal patients. That means you need 5 nurses to deal with
just those
5 suicidal patients.
Ladies, we are just about out of time. Nurse Brennan, if I want to give you an opportunity to speak, what can we do as the public to help you all to deliver better health care to us? As the public, what should we do?
As a public, I think, first of all, they should respect us and the role that we play. It's important. And most importantly, but to add to that, is that everybody, I'm sure, has some healthcare provider attached in their family. Might not be a nurse, but you have one. And the next thing that I'd like to add is that being conscientious of the health choices that you make and the practices that you keep, and always seeking help. Do not go to Dr. Google. We are not fans of Dr. Google in the healthcare
And Nurse
facility.
Facebook.
Yes, and Nurse Facebook. We're not fans of those. So we want you to come in if you have questions and to get the accurate information depending on what your complaint is. And it doesn't even have to be a complaint, even if it's just a wellness checkup that you want to do. And another thing I'm going to stress too with that is coming in to have your physicals done. A lot of people shy away from it, saying that, I don't need to find out what my blood pressure is like.
I feel okay.
Yeah, I don't need to know what my iron level is like. But those things are important, because when we run investigations, it captures a picture for us as to exactly what may be going on. There may be nothing going on, but once we see those red flags, we know now that, we need to step in, because we do not need this person to end up in critical care or even worse, in the morgue. That's something that we really trying to avoid as much as possible. So partnering with us is vital.
So, ladies, unfortunately, we are out of time. First of all, I just want to thank you for the great work that you do. And I know you've heard it, but you really are the health of our nation, and we could not survive without you. Nurses, doctors, all healthcare professionals. I know it's not easy. I have been in those places. I see how our people behave at times. So I know it's not easy. So I want to thank you for the work that you do, and I want to applaud you, and I want you to be encouraged. And all of your colleagues who are watching the show, just be encouraged and thank you. I know that it's not always easy, and you're right. Guess what? Sometimes we don't come to work with the right attitude. So what do you expect about these professionals sometimes? It's just, sometimes just saying there. You know, we all have our bad days, but thank you for the work that you do, and please be encouraged. So Nurse Lightburn and Nurse Brennan DeVoe, thank you so much for joining us here on The Record. You've heard a lot tonight. We have a responsibility as the public. It's not just up to the government and these professionals, it's up to all of us. Ladies, again, we loved having you here with us. All the best to you, President, in your new post, well, both of you actually, in your post and in your job. Please do visit us again, okay?
Most certainly.
All right, that's a deal. And thank you for our viewing audience for joining us tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed it. Glad to have you back. We're happy to be back with you after a little break. Join us again next week when we discover another hot topic that affects the lives of Bahamians. Until then, I'm Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you again soon.